Welcome to the tutorial on how to embroider the veins into one of the bat wings. So here I have done the left wing, and you can see there's 2 veins. You can put more than 2 if you'd like, but I like to just do 2. And if you look closely, you'll see the whites that are showing through a little bit. I like to do it this way. You can embroider however you want, but this is how I choose to do it. It's a little bit different than the normal method of embroidering onto things. So I'm going to take the right wing that doesn't have the veins on it yet, and we'll show you how to do this with that right wing. So like I said, I do use a method where the whites show through a little bit. I like that method because I think it makes it a little more realistic with the veins on there. So also I want to mention that the yarn that we use, the velvet thicker yarn, is a little hard to work with. It tends to fray and break. So you're going to be really gentle and careful while you're doing that. So this is the needle I use, and it's a little bit bigger, the eye of the needle, so that you can fit that yarn through easily. So I like to take about 2.5 to 3 arms length of yarn and snip that to make 2 veins. If you're making more than 2, obviously snip more, but I like to make just the 2, a long one and a little short one. So I'll snip that, and then you'll notice in a second here that I like to take the end of the yarn and pull a little bit of the velvet off, just like I'm about to do here. Yep. And then you're going to take that and thread it through the eye of the needle, and it makes it a lot more easy since it's smaller and thinner to get through there instead of trying to get that whole big chunk of yarn through. I've just found that it's easier to do it that way. So I like to start at the top of the inside corner, and you're going to go through from behind and pull half of the yarn that you have measured out through, and one piece of the yarn is going to be one vein and the other's going to be the other vein. So I just do half and half and measure it, make sure it's equal and even. So evening it out, pulling it to make sure it's even, and this will give us a nice bit of yarn to work with. So I had the needle threaded on the other piece of yarn, and I want to start at the top for the top vein, so I'm just rethreading the needle on the right piece of yarn that I want to start with. So I usually like doing the top one first and see where that goes, and then it gives me a better idea what I want to do with the bottom vein. So I go back through the back again, just a stitch very close to the one you went through before, just to secure it and make sure you're going in the right direction. And then what you do with the vein is you're going to be going through multiple different stitches in different directions, and you kind of just wing it and wing, that's a pun. You kind of just wing it, and you go just along where you think that you want the vein to go. So this is going to kind of give you an idea, but you can really go anywhere you want. So here I just find a stitch where I want to start, where I want it to go. And then I go under that stitch, just making sure you're on the top surface, don't go all the way through, and I tug it like that. So the reason that I tug it like that is because that velvet yarn is thicker, it would be hard to go through if you didn't tug it. You want to stretch the stitch out to make sure that the thicker yarn can glide through easily. Then you want to very gently pull that through, or else it will break and fray easily. So then you just go right back through the same way that you did. And again, you want to tug it a little bit, which I didn't do, but you can tug it a little bit and gently pull through. And then it kind of makes like a little bump there, and you can see the whites through, which again, I like. I think it makes it a little more realistic. So now basically you're just going to go in ways that you see fit to go. So I'm kind of going a little bit close to where I just went, but you don't have to. You can make that length a little bit farther. And again, I'm tugging it like you see, and very, very gently pull the yarn through so it doesn't break and fray as easily. It will break and fray, just so you know, usually towards the end, but it will start to kind of, separate a little bit in the middle as you go along, so you're going to want to be even more careful as you go with your embroidery. So I'm going to stop right here because I'm going to show you something. My yarn's starting to fray a little bit. So again, I'm tugging up as I go through that stitch. But then what I do is I will, as you see through when I do the next one, when I go back through it, I'll kind of put my thumb on the stitch and stretch it out even more as I'm pulling it through, because there's those little pieces that are breaking in the middle. So if you see my thumb, I'm kind of stabilizing it and making sure that that still goes through, because it's going to start to get harder to pull the yarn through as it's starting to get those little breaks in between. Okay, so now I have my vein where I want it to be, where I want it to end. I usually, for the long one, I go right up to the pink border so that I can weave in the end through the pink border at the outside of the wing. So I'm just going to go just any way that you like to weave your ends in, but I go through the stitches and then I kind of go back and forth a couple of times, which is a little bit hard for the velvet yarn when it's breaking like this, to be honest. And you can see all those breaks in the yarn because I've been overusing it so much, going in and out of stitches. So it can prove to be a little bit difficult to do. And I'm tugging again at the stitches to try to easily make it go through and not have it break, snap in half fully. So I went through a couple times. And you can take a little bit of glue too to really secure it. So I snipped it kind of flush, but you can take a little bit of fabric glue and tack the little tiny end down once you're done too. That's an option for you. Okay, so now I'm taking the other piece of yarn, and this is going to be the short vein that I work just below the longer vein that I did. So again, I thread the needle with the yarn, and then just like we did before, I am going to start by finding a stitch where I see fit, where I think it should start to go, and tug up on that stitch and gently pull through. Very gently, because remember, the yarn does snap and fray. It's pretty annoying, but the result's nice. So then you'll go right back through, tug, gently pull, just like you did with the longer vein, and then just find the area in which you want the vein to start to drift towards. So I'm just gonna go through and do that. Okay, so this is where I want my shorter vein to end here. So now I'm just gonna go for this one, since it's ending not near a border, I'm just gonna go back up through all the stitches that I worked down. So you'll see me just go all the way up. I don't think you need to go through twice through all those stitches. You can just go through once. So like when you go down, you go through twice. You go through the stitch, you go through it again. When you go back up, just follow your trail back up and go once all the way through those stitches. And then you'll reach the top, and then that way you'll have an area where you can easily hide in your tails. You can weave in your ends. If you see that one stitch I'm kind of feeling a lot, and I think I'm not sure about it because I don't like how it's bulging out, I end up later gluing it down. I don't know if it's in the video, but I did get pretty annoyed at it, and I took some fabric glue and I tacked it down so it stayed put. You can do that if you find any areas where you want it to sit flat. You can definitely take some fabric glue and do that. So I go through the corner and back through another stitch, and then I will do the same thing that I did on the outside. I just use that border as my area to weave in. So I'll go through, and I usually go back and forth a couple of times just to make sure that it's nice and weaved in, that tail. And again, like I said, you can either clip flush or you can leave a tiny little tail and use some fabric glue and tack that little piece down for some extra security. Yeah, see, look, I'm really annoyed with this piece. So, again, you can take some fabric glue and tack it down. I believe I'm about to do it. I am. Yep, so that's the type of glue I use, flexible, stretchable fabric glue. And this usually you have to let sit, this type of glue, you have to let sit 24 hours, so you don't want to bother the project after. Sometimes I use hot glue for things, but I like the fabric glue a lot better. It's not as hard. So I take the end of a needle, like you see here, like a smaller needle that you would use with regular yarn. And I just, that way there's a lot more precision to it. So I take the end of that needle and I get a dab of glue on there, as you'll see in a second, and put it right under the yarn that I don't, or the little stitch I don't like, instead of pulling it all out, because like you've seen, this yarn is kind of difficult to work with. So little dab at the end of the needle, and then I put it just a little bit. Sorry, I'm blocking you. My big head. Yep, right there, and then I use the needle too to push it down instead of, and my finger a little bit. That way I really know it's on there. And then I leave that for about 24 hours. And there you have it, your veins on your wings. It's a little bit of a different method than the normal embroidery, but I hope you found this helpful. And thank you for watching. Bye.